Hello and welcome to the Lost Zone podcast. I'm here today, Joe Turntine, with John Waingard as always, and special guest Gabriel Smart. Say hello.
Hey, what's up? This is Smart TCG. Nice to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah. Um, there are a lot of events coming up here in the next couple weeks with Portland next week, I think. Next week.
Yeah, Portland's next week.
And
Yeah,
then
Well,
there's
technically this week.
technically this
this
week, yeah.
weekend, yeah.
And then Hartford and then Milwaukee all back to back. So we've got a good amount to talk about. Some new cards dropped. We love our new cards here. And other than that, yeah, I'm gonna let Gabe take the floor for a little bit, talk about some of his recent performances at events. He just got back from London as well,
Something like that. Yeah.
something like
I
that.
think it
So,
was London was the last one, right?
yeah,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
there's
Yeah,
been so
yeah.
many. I'm just like, I don't actually know which ones they are. I don't like, I know I've been places, but yeah, no. I'm currently ranked in the top 16 US and Canada. I believe 11th right now with like 850-ish points. So doing pretty good. Should be able to finish in the top 16 at the end of the year. I play Pokemon full time as a job. I also coach full time. That's part of it. I'm sponsored by Dead Draw Gaming as well. I write for Cutter Tap, and I make YouTube and Twitch content. So make sure to go check those out.
all of those links will be down below, so you can go check those out if
Mhm.
you guys are interested.
Yeah, and yeah, that's currently what I do right now. I play a whole lot of Pokemon. I'm going to Portland. I'm also going to the Columbia SPE as well the week after that. I wasn't actually planning on doing that, but I got bored and flights were pretty cheap actually, so that was good. And then I'll be at Hartford Regionals as well. And yeah, I'm excited to compete. I know that EUIC kind of shook up the meta game a little bit. Some things did well that we weren't necessarily expecting to do well. So that's kind of turned the meta, kind of on its head. So I'm excited to see exactly what happens at Portland.
All right. Last week, we talked about the results of EUIC and stuff like that, but I'd like to hear Gabe's point of view on how you think the meta is, what decks you think are good right now, what decks you think could be good along those lines.
Yeah, so as I kind of said, decks that weren't necessarily predicted to do well, specifically Arceus Duraludon Vulpix did exceptionally well at the European International Championships, which kind of turned the metagame upside down. Heading into Portland Regionals, Lost Box I think is probably going to be the most played deck just because it's a comfort choice for a lot of people and it's also relatively cheap to build. I also think Gardevoir is really, really well set up right now to have a deep run. The one big question about Gardevoir, I guess, as of right now, is that can it beat Lost Box consistently, or at least 45 to 50% of the time to justify playing it in a field that has 25 to 30% of Lost Box? I think that's the big question that the Gardevoir players, should be asking themselves. Some obvious counters could be Klefki or Mewtwo V Union. However, those aren't necessarily super hard counters to them because they can play kind of around those cards. And also on top of it, you kind of hinder your mirror match and just pretty much every other match in general, having a lot of those cards. I think that players are going to come out at this tournament playing text to things like the Vulpix V-Star, specifically cards like Path to the Peak. That's a really, really good card to combo against that. I think some Gardevoir players will bring things like Mimikyu EX as well to try and handle that card. Whether or not it's actually worth to play it or not, that's kind of the question. But I think that Lost Box and Gardevoir are probably the best two position decks. And I think Lugia and Mew also are setting themselves up to be pretty good as well. I think Mew is actually not talked about enough. I think the deck is really, really good. It has relatively okay matchups across the board, but you always kind of run that risk of going Judge Path and then they just draw perfectly out of it, which is kind of the one issue that Mew always has, kind of ran into, specifically the Judge Path version. So yeah, we're kind of in an interesting spot right now where there really isn't any tier S deck. It's just a bunch of tier A and B decks that all can kind of compete, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that we necessarily haven't seen in quite some time.
No, for sure. I agree 100%. I think that currently, like you said, Lost Box is probably going to be like I'd say probably 45% of the meta at Portland. I'd say it's gonna.
Five, bro.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty high
Okay.
percentage.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wait, did you say 45?
It's at
yeah,
45.
yeah.
That's a lot, man.
Is that like
I
every variant?
I feel like all variants combined. Yes, I feel like Comfy's index um will be a very high
Uh,
percentage of these events coming very soon.
I don't know about
Sure.
that, dog.
I mean, I could see 30%. I mean,
Yeah.
45, dude. You're, I don't know.
I mean, that's like
a
Lugia
lot.
numbers. That's like Lugia numbers.
Yeah, but like this isn't as good as what Lugia was.
I mean, I think that Lugia peaked at like 35 or like 30. I don't think it ever got that high.
I mean, like,
but Lugia was
day
just also
one,
so far and away the
yeah.
best deck.
I guess that's
Yeah,
fair,
like
yeah.
day 2 might have been 40% at
Day
some
2 was
point.
LAIC day 2 was like 55.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
crazy. That event was just a Lugia mirror match fiesta. I remember that. And day 2 was awful.
Speaking of Lugia, I know that you played Lugia to London. How do you think the deck is currently with, it being more or less coin flip related compared to as it used to before?
Sure, yeah. So I played Lugia quite a bit over the past year or so. Probably the deck that I've seen the most success with this season. What I would probably say about it right now is that I'm not necessarily a major fan of it just because it's such a high rollish deck. Having to flip coins to base whether or not you're going to set up or not is not necessarily something that I personally love to do. I went 5-2-2 at UIC. Definitely there were some points in games where I felt like if a coin flipped that way or like something else, and I probably would have been able to win those matches. So that's, I guess, the one issue that I have with the deck. The biggest issue, and I'll actually go over like the biggest thing going for it and the biggest issue that it has. The biggest thing going for it, I guess I'll start off with that, is the Lost Box matchup is very good. Stonejourner and Yveltal are incredibly difficult to deal with, especially if they also play things like Regenerative and also Collapse Stadium. They can remove things like their V-Star, so they can't actually Sky Seal Stone it. So I do think that Lugia does take by far the best Lost Box matchup out of the top 4 or 5 decks. The issue is the Guardian matchup. The Guardian matchup is not great right now. Sky Seal Stonization is a major problem, and you don't really have necessarily a way to stop that. On top of it, Roxanne plus Temple is really, really bad because Lugia is a deck right now that can't really thin itself out. From the games that I've tested with it, oftentimes, like on that very last turn or two of the game, I'm still sitting with 30 cards, which makes the deck very prone to Roxanne. So I think that's the big issue. I don't think it's necessarily a bad pick. I just think that it's probably the weakest it's ever been. But if everyone plays Lost Box, then it could win the tournament. But I don't think it's a tier 1 deck. I think it's a top of tier 1.5. And maybe that's a hot take right now, but I don't think it's in the top 3 decks in the format.
John, what's your opinions on Lugia? I know you were not.
I'm a Lugia hater. That deck's, bro. Gabe, I don't understand you.
Yeah, dude, I know.
Writer, I guess.
I guess a good question for people watching would be if Portland was the first event that somebody was going to go to, right? What deck would you suggest for them to pick up to go to this event? Like if with little to no practice time between now and between Portland and
Sure, yeah. So I guess the first thing I'll say is that if you at least have some idea on what you're supposed to play, I always like to tell people just play, like what you're, most comfortable with. I think that's something that's not really talked about enough. I know a lot of players, go into tournaments with decks that just because it's labeled as the best deck in format, they kind of feel like pressured into playing it, and then they struggle and they don't necessarily do well at that event. So I think playing something that they're comfortable with is something that's not talked about enough because they're going to see typically more success with that. When it comes to someone that's just like new, like maybe like going to their first regional, just trying to play something, basic and simple, I'd probably say the best decks to play would probably be the Arceus V-Star variants. Specifically Arceus Giratina, very, very simple deck, and also the Duraludon variant of that as well are kind of the easiest decks. Some people would say Mew, but Mew takes a lot of sequencing. I know that you've been playing a little bit, Joe,
Yeah.
right? And I know that's a deck where like you need to sequence relatively well, like just because you get put in situations where you need to, find those big, combination turns where you hit like 3 or 4 tablet and stuff like that. So I think that deck's actually a lot harder than, people give it credit for to play. So I would say an Arceus variant is definitely going to be the easiest deck to play. And then I think that's probably the easiest deck, and then maybe Lugia as well. But still, even that deck, there's a lot of things that you can do with it just because you have so many options. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
I feel like Mew has taken its difference between old format and new, because new Mew's like one goal is to keep a consistent lock on your opponent compared to whereas before it was swing fast and swing quick. You know what I mean? Mew was
Sure. It was just
now-
turn 1 to 10.
yeah, it was like, and now it's more you run heavy path 4 vacuum. You know, you're trying to pretty much judge path every turn while also consistently taking knockouts. So there's a lot more sequencing that goes into the deck than I feel like used to happen. Um, but I think Mew is pretty set up in the meta right now. The only problem that it comes into is the decks that are running the 2 Drapion now because they can't handle the Mew matchup.
Yeah, and I think that's
I guess.
more than it used to be. I
Yeah.
think people are just YOLOing like 2 Drapion into lists now, where
Yeah.
that necessarily wasn't super big in the past.
Yeah.
Oh.
There were a couple times where people did play double Drapion before when they were worried about, like, if the only matchup they were necessarily worried about was Mew, running a second Drapion fixed that problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Gudra
now,
sometimes ran it. I know that you ran it.
Yeah, we ran-
yeah.
in
Orlando, yeah.
we ran 2 Drapion in Orlando, yeah. But yeah.
How many Mew did you hit in day 2, Joe?
In day 2, 2. In day 1, 4.
Lucky.
Yeah, those were quick games. They were always so confident when they lost on the first one, and then I had to ruin their game.
Yeah.
They would put down the loss note. I'd be like, "Well, that's game." I'm like, "You needed a path there." But yeah, I like Mew. I still think it struggles a little bit. I think Gudra is just a bad matchup, and there's not much you can do about it. But I
Yeah,
don't.
that's one of the worst matchups.
But I also don't know how competitively viable Gudra is overall right now. Like, I think it's good, but like at the same point, I think it does have a lot of weak points that it didn't have before. Like not being able to pick up confies off your board is a big thing without scoop up net. Like Gudra before was like, you know, set up a Gudra, set up a second Gudra, you know, slowly, and then get the confies off your boards with scoop up nets, and then just sit from there and play from there. But now it's like you have to keep the confies on the board, and that's their prizes. They now just have to go kill double confy, kill a Gudra that's on the bench, and then kill your active somehow. So I feel like Gudra might not be.
Yeah.
I think Gudra was a good pick going into London though, because Gudra does really good in undefined metas because it just is able to tank a lot of the big hitters that come out with new sets and stuff like that. So, but
It had the highest conversion rate to day 2, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was like 15%.
It had the
yeah.
highest conversion rate, I think, out of every meta deck that was played in day 1. I think it was like 15%. It was really, really good.
It's
Yeah.
huge.
But I don't know. What's your opinions on Gudra going forward?
So Gudra, I think actually pretty much you hit it on the nail where it's a deck that is very good at the beginning of formats, particularly because players are trying out new things. That's also when the most amount of casual players are typically also going to be playing as well. And Gudra is a deck that preys on people that don't necessarily know how to play against it. Like even its matchups versus Lost Box, if the Lost Box player plays actually correctly, is not very good for Gudra. However, I would say a lot of Lost Box players don't necessarily know how to play the Gudra matchup, so Gudra can kind of prey on that. I think Gudra was a really good pick for something like EUIC just because Guardy didn't do exceptionally well aside from Tord. I know there was Tord that got second, and then I think Pedro Pertusi was the next highest placing one. There might have been a couple else scattered in top 16 and 32, but Gardevoir didn't necessarily perform incredibly well. However, it seems like everyone in the Western world is playing Gardevoir or Lost Box, and Gardevoir is a really, really bad matchup for Gudra. Especially, I think the biggest thing is that now Guardy lists are playing Devilization, whereas back then they were only playing 1, so the matchup was a little bit closer. But now since they play 2, it's really, really difficult. And also another big thing is that Lugia is now playing either Duraludon VMAX or Single Strike Urshifu VMAX, which also makes the matchup really, really difficult for Gudra. So I think that Gudra can definitely compete still against all those decks. It's really, really difficult. And I don't know if you want to go into a tournament saying I'm going to hit probably a bunch of hard matchups that I can win, but I don't necessarily know like if I want to put myself kind of through that. It's almost kind of like the Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX and Talion effect, where like no one really wanted to play the deck except for like Tord and like the Bradner group, just because the deck was just incredibly hard to play and just kind of took 50-50s against everything, and you had to try really hard to win your games, which kind of pushed people away from it. I wouldn't say it's necessarily happening to Gudra, but that kind of is how it feels for me, where like it's not necessarily super hard to play. It's just that I would say a large portion of the matchups are just really difficult if they know what they're doing.
That's fair.
Mhm.
Like that's actually pretty accurate. John, what do you think about it?
Gudra?
Yeah.
I think Gabe just hit it like right on the head, honestly.
That's
that-
fair.
Yeah.
What else made top 8 at that event? I know it was.
Of EUIC,
Yeah, I know it was. There was
it
a
was Mew, Vulpix,
Maridon
Cody.
made it.
Or okay, somehow, yeah, they did
No,
it.
Gabe,
don't know how,
what do
but
you
they
think?
made
What do
it.
you think about
Bro,
Maridon, Gabe?
How did Szymanski beat it in top 8? I just want to know. Matchup seemed
Ye-
bad.
I
He
don't
dead
think the
drew.
Maridon player set up very well.
Yeah,
I don't think
dead
he
drew.
actually drew. Yeah, he drew really bad apparently. And I actually think that Maridon probably does pretty good against that deck. If you can just get set up super quickly, you can kind of run them over. Maridon is the most aggressive deck in format. I think that's what it has, kind of going for it. However, if you can survive the first turn or two, kind of build up your board state against that deck, then you kind of just take over and you should be able to win relatively easily just because the prize trades aren't naturally super favorable. The Gardevoir matchup is not great and the Lugia matchup is borderline unwinnable. However, you do always run that chance of just being able to run them over if they stumble, simply because you do have the ability to hit turn one Raikou on something like a Lugia or like maybe on like the one Ralts they have on the field. So you do have the ability to just kind of run them over, which in theory kind of does fix some of those matchups. It almost reminds me of Rayquaza GX back in the day where that deck just used the Baby Marshadow to put them down to 4 cards on turn 1 and just smacked them in the face. And they basically said, if you set up, I cannot really beat you, but I'm going to try and make sure that you don't set up. So I think that's pretty much just how like Maridon should be built. And I think that's how the guy that got top 8 kind of went by, because I know they played like 3 Chromatic, so it just was all kind of turbo. And I think that's probably the best way to play it. Kind of like how Rayquaza GX in the past also did that.
Yeah. My locals all play Maridon, and it's a nightmare fest, dude. It's because like some days the locals be playing Magnezone V. Like I don't even know what that card does. Like it's like they could just
Yeah, I know that one's interesting. I don't know why
could-
that card's in the deck.
they could just throw any electric guy in there. There's Pachirisu in some of the list. I don't know. The lists are crazy. But we were me and John last week were talking about cups and challenges that we've been to. And so I was wondering if there was any interesting stories of some cups or challenges that you've been to within the last couple weeks because locals are back.
That's a great question. Yeah, so I've actually been to 3 cups. I got top 8 at one, top 4 at the other, and then bombed the one. And then I went to actually a midnight league challenge. I guess that's probably like the most like interesting thing was I went to a challenge. They put it at midnight, and the reason they did it was because they wanted to make sure that it was only locals only. So like people from like 2 or 3 hours away couldn't necessarily come. I don't really think that there is anything. I would say the one thing is that since there's a lot more casual players, that are going to these events, making sure that they keep up with their pace of play, I think that's really, really important. Because I played against some people who aren't necessarily intentionally, like trying to slow play, but it's just like since locals that came back, there's a lot of newer players. So I think trying to navigate that has been something that's been interesting. But other than that, I don't think there's been really any interesting stories. They've been pretty flawless, which is like one of the nice things about California. They have a lot of like pretty experienced judges here. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have any super interesting stories except for the midnight challenge, but I mean,
What did you play?
Yeah, so I played Gardevoir, which is kind of a risky pick because Gardevoir sometimes can be pretty inconsistent in best of one. And I guess I can kind of go into best of one. Typically, when it comes to best of one, I like to focus on playing like more consistent decks, which is why like UV Max, which might not necessarily have the strongest matchup spread, but it just has probably the most consistent engine right now currently in Pokemon. And that's actually kind of a reason why I'm straying away from Lugia right now, is because since it's just so much based around your coin flips, you could either go 5-0 at a League Cup and just like sweep top 8, or you could go 0-3 or 1-3 like I did last week with the deck, because the deck just did not set up and function. So I think that's a big thing like that is like really, really important when it comes to League Cups and League Challenges, because typically they're best of one. I know that some League Cups are best of 3, which is actually just like really cool. But for best of one events, I prefer to focus a little bit more on like consistency rather than playing tech cards and risky decks.
No, for sure. John, I saw that you won something. Was that just a locals?
Oh yeah, the Little Timmy League Challenge. Yeah.
Oh, wait, you won a league challenge?
Got those 15 points. Let's go, John.
Little Timmy. No, that was for the deck list pick. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you wait? You won the league challenge with it?
I didn't wear the Guardy shirt.
No, I mean you won the league challenge with Guardy.
Oh yeah, with Echoing Horn Guardy. Yeah.
Echoing Horn. Is that
Yeah,
a
Echoing
thing?
Horn and
Is that
Guardy.
a thing that like people are playing? I
It's a thing that me and Grant Shen were talking about.
okay.
Let's cap.
Look, we tried
No
it.
shot,
It
bro.
wasn't great. No. We won
Um,
the tournament, but Horn was not useful.
is there anything more about the current format that you'd like to talk about, or anything that
Yeah, I don't necessarily think so. So I guess I'll say one thing. I'm really interested to see how much people respect Lost Box going into this event. And I'm gonna say there's a possibility I'm not gonna say really, really bad deck, but a deck that might not necessarily have a very good matchup spread, but does beat the Lost Box variants, there might be a chance that some Arceus Sharon's Care deck or something just built to beat Lost Zone is just gonna, sweep through and start off like 9-0. I'm at Portland because I think that Lost Box is going to be by far the most played deck. So I'm curious to see exactly how that does. It's almost kind of like the Lugia effect where like there were people that started to play like quad Aerodactyl just to try and counter the Lugia deck and just like bad shit like that where they were just like trying to just beat just one deck and one deck only. So I'm curious if that's going to happen at Portland, but other than that I don't think there's necessarily a whole lot else to go over when it comes to this format
yeah.
for
Sure.
Portland specifically.
We can talk about a little bit. We talked about this last week a little bit. NAIC, the format
Oh,
change with Paldea.
Paldea, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you've been looking anything into the new format, anything for NAIC, any of the new cards. But have you found any decks that you think have potential with the new format?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're gonna say new decks, I guess we can. I mean, like Lugia gets better with Jet Energy, right? Regigigas, I guess.
Doesn't Lugia stop running single strike after? Because it starts running the like
It starts running like the
Stop running, yeah.
Aurora,
like the
like the mini
Luminous
rainbow energy.
Yeah,
the
Luminous.
it runs like the therapy energy, and then it runs Snorlax, and Jet energy.
I think you can now. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I actually don't think the single strike energy version is like very good. It just has really good matchups across the board just because of the typing that it hits.
Yeah.
So I think the deck is not actually inherently a very, very strong deck. It just has arguably the best typing in the game. I think Lugia definitely gets better. I think going back to a more consistent and vanilla build will definitely be a blessing for that deck. Reggie's actually gets playable again because of the brand new Rainbow Energy, just because even just having like one free energy, because I know you can only attach one to every Pokemon, right?
Yeah. Only one
that's
special energy at all.
Yeah, that still makes it easier for them to be able to set up it. I don't necessarily know, but then again, like you can't attach gift then, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
guess that's kind of a problem. I haven't necessarily looked a whole lot into the new stuff. I know that Guardy with the Drift Bloom and Champions Festival is really, really strong. I'm thinking about having to shell out $700-800 for two festivals, which is not fun, but yeah, that's another deck as well that I think definitely has potential.
Don't you have festivals?
I've always sold my festivals. I've sold them in
Bro.
2018, 2022. I'm probably gonna sell them again this year.
My God.
To buy a car and a yacht with them because that's apparently how much they're worth right now. But yeah, I've always been someone that has sold my festivals, which like I don't know like if we could have predicted that this would have happened, but I'm also curious to see what happens if they're gonna ban the card or not as well. I don't think they will though.
I don't think they would ban the card. I
The
mean,
Cold Stone money didn't get
They
you
never
enough for
banned
festival?
Tropical Beach, so that's like the biggest argument to say like they're not going to ban it because they never banned Beach, and Beach was like 300-400 a piece.
What?
Say that again. Say that again.
Like Cold Stone money didn't get you enough for festivals, bro? Like,
Man, no.
Yeah, I think that there is festivals probably will not get banned. It's the same logic with like beaches. Like beaches was played in like one of the most competitive decks back in the day, and it didn't get banned. So I don't think. I mean, I guess are we calling Primal Groudon the best, one of the most
I mean, it was
competitive
played in
decks?
Groudon.
it was played in
sometimes
Arch.
played
It
in
was
dark
played in
decks.
Soyuz, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it's played in Stoys, sometimes dark decks. And I guess so the argument to say that there's a chance it could be banned was back then social media necessarily wasn't as large. And I think if everyone starts just to scream on social media, kind of about it, there's a chance that they consider it more. But I do think that also was a different time. where TPCI didn't necessarily listen as much to the Pokemon community as they do now. So if for some reason the card became a staple in Gardevoir and Gardevoir becomes the best deck in the format and cards like Temple of Sinnoh just are simply not worth playing and Festival is, then we're going to run into a situation where the community is going to be insanely upset. Because we're also going to run into a problem where people start to buy out beaches or not beaches. They start to hoard just tons of festivals and they jack up the prices. So it's going to become also increasingly hard to find them, even though there's a lot of them that exist. There it's gonna be really interesting heading into NAIC because I think that's the first event with the new set, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be really interesting to see exactly how people adapt to that if something like Champions Festival does, become a staple just because of Gardevoir's existence.
Yeah. I know a lot of people were talking about running Picnic Basket as like a
Yes. One of my
Yeah.
friends was like, we're playing
Yes.
Picnic Basket. We're gonna do budget
Yeah.
Guardy.
Yeah. I know that since you said you haven't really looked into much, I know that so Ting Lu is good.
Ting Lu,
is
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Do you know what Ting Lu
Yes,
does?
that's the water type one, right?
No.
No, that's
it's-
Chien Pao. Ting Lu's
Oh,
the
that's
ability
Chien
lock
Pao.
one.
My bad.
So Ting Lu, do you know what
His
Ting Lu
ability
does,
lock.
Gabe?
I
It's,
remember. I think I saw the card. I'd
It
have to
says
hear what.
every Pokemon on your opponent's side of the board that has a damage counter on it that's not an EX has no abilities.
Oh yeah, that thing.
So-
Yeah,
so
that
you
thing's
run-
really good.
So yeah, you run it with like Gape Jaw, and then they put Comfies down, and then they can't use them.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how that affects Lost Unbox. Lost Unbox might have to go up to like 4 vacuum for Stadium as well to attempt to counter that.
That's
but,
what
yeah.
I think. Ting Lu could actually make Champions Festival actually better.
Yeah.
And, like that's the problem.
Yeah, you're gonna be
Yeah.
like Festival heal all the damage.
Yeah, like Lost Box starts running Festival. It's like,
Oh
it's
my
like dude, we can't
lord.
play the Comfies without it.
We're all done if Lost Box starts playing Festival and Gardevoir. That card's gonna hit like
God.
600-700 a piece, and I do not. I'm gonna say this: if you guys have friends that have like 10 festivals, I have a friend that's been to Worlds like 6 or 7 times. Stay close to them because you might need them off them.
you might need to borrow them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's Ting Lu, which is good, and then the other one of the legendary Pokemon is the Chen Pao deck with Baxcalibur, which is basically a reprint of Blastoise.
Yes, yeah, that card's really cool.
I think that deck's pretty good. I don't know how competitive it is. I think it's kind of unless there's like a good one prize water attacker, I still think you just lose to Lost Box.
It just kind of comes down to the price trades and stuff like that because
Maybe
Guardian
Kyurem.
Lost Box price still well into it. Kyurem, dude,
Baby
Kyurem's
Kyurem. Oh, that's a Gearhart card.
Wait,
Oh.
the baby Kyurem with that costs the steel energy?
Look, the way you said that, yeah, it takes a steel energy.
Bro,
Yeah.
that's it. My
you said
Chen
that.
Pals can't search for steel energy, bud.
Look. That's right. Figure it
but
out.
yeah, there's that, and then the new starters come out of that set. We get the new Charm, which is basically just the reprint of Cape. I don't know. I think if you had to take a bet, I asked John this. What do you think? What do you think out of Paldea will make top 8? What decks do you think will stay consistently good? Because I know a lot of people.
That's a good question.
Because I do know a lot of people are not going to many big events that are like Portland, Milwaukee, like all those kinds of events, and they're
It's all just kind of NAIC for
yeah,
some people.
Yeah, a lot of people just go to NAIC because it's a big event and they want to play. So obviously more closer to then, we'll see what starts testing correctly and stuff. But if you had to take like a wild guess,
I think that Chen Pao is like decent. That's one thing. Like its ability just is really broken once in your turn. Like being able to switch up to 2 water energies and putting them into your hand is just strong. I think that ability is just naturally very, very good, and its attack is good. So I could definitely see that like doing well. Water already has a decent amount of support.
Plus, if I'm not mistaken, we get superior energy retrieval back.
We do get superior back. Yep.
Yes, we do. That's also really, really important. The new End card is also going to be really, really important in some lists as well. So I'm curious to see exactly what that gets thrown into. Tinglu's like okay. I don't necessarily know how good it is. The fact that it needs 3 fighting to get set up is kind of annoying. So
We
you
don't
have
got
to
a problem with
use.
that. We got
Dude,
Koraidon.
that's fine.
That is true. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
true. That is true. But I guess the problem is like you have to spend a turn doing that, and like what if they
That's
just go boss
fine.
KO?
That's
I guess
fine.
that's the thing. Chi-Yu EX is like not great. It's not
GX
great.
sucks.
But
I
Dude.
don't
it's
think it's
awesome.
very good. Yeah. I was looking at this and I was like, wow, they really just hate this Pokemon, apparently. I didn't even know this was a Pokemon as well.
Chi-Yu's the little fish, right?
Yeah.
God
It's
damn it.
it's the fire one,
Dude, that
yeah.
makes me so sad. Chi-Yu's like the coolest of all 4 of them.
Yeah, I know they did this dude dirty. And I think that Guardian and Lost Box are still going to remain exceptionally well. I think Lugia definitely is going to continue to get stronger and stronger. Lugia and Lost Box are both decks that are just like they can pretty much fit most cards into it. Which means just as we get more and more sets, both of them are just going to become inherently stronger and stronger. So that's what I would say. But I think the one that probably has the best chance out of most of the Lu cards are probably going to be Chen Pao EX over like Tinglu and then the other fire one. I don't even know how to say them. But yeah. But I do think that Chen Pao probably has the most potential, but
Yeah.
see.
Also, you brought up Iono. A lot of
Yes.
a lot of Japan lists I've seen are running like anywhere from 3 to 4 of that card. It's a really good card. I mean, it's N basically. But I don't know if our meta is the same as when we had N last, right? Because when we had N last, it was kind of one of the
Yeah.
only. It was one of the only draw supporters we had, right? It was that and research.
There was also Garbotoxin as well, to turn off, things like abilities. And then this format, there's a lot more draw power. So yeah.
I don't. Do you think? I mean, obviously that card will be played in replacement of Roxanne, right? I don't think Roxanne will be any.
I don't think
Yeah.
any Japan lists are running Roxanne anymore.
Yeah, I don't think Roxanne is as useful as a card with Iono in format because I feel like Iono is a card that you can use like halfway through the game and it work as a form of judge, kind of. Because like if you use it halfway through the game and there are 4 prizes, you're basically just Marnieing them, right? So like it's like multiple different situations that like the card can be used. So I don't know if it just replaces a lot of our current day draw supporters or if it'll be like a 1 of or a 2 of. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's definitely not as good as N. I think that's relatively fair to say. More or less not because of the card strength. I
of
think it's just because of the
Garbotoxin.
met.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just because back then there also wasn't as much draw power as I think there is arguably right now. And well, I wouldn't even say that. I think it's just that there isn't a way to shut off the draw power in the format. So the card is pretty much similar to Roxanne in a way. And also since we're still pretty based around a 2 and 3 prize metagame, the card is going to be oftentimes only putting them down to 2, like as opposed to 1, as often. Because like in the past, like you could easily get them down to 1 and then like do the enter 1 just because of cards like Trashalange, like the baby Zoroark. There was just lots of, like 1 prize attackers, whereas nowadays it's not necessarily as much as what it used to be. But I think that it's definitely going to be good. It will probably be a 3 or 4 of in a lot of decks. Except for decks like Lasso and Toolbox and Gardevoir where they just don't really need supporters. But I think it's a good card for the game. It's probably going to replace Roxanne for sure. But it's just, I guess, the question of how many like do you actually want to play, because you can use it at any point, which is important. Roxanne you can't, which is why there's only 1 or 2 in most decks.
Yeah.
For Roxanne, like, so that's what I'd say on it. I think it's good though. Like it'll definitely be like a 2 to 4 of, but probably more in the 2 to 3 range as opposed to 4.
John, what are your opinions on Iono?
Good card. That's all I got.
John got
What?
best takes.
I'm here to be the dumbass. Yeah.
So I guess we'll go over a couple of the new cards that have been leaked since the last episode.
Is there more?
Yeah, last episode we mentioned that there was the 151 like sheet revealed with all the cards on it, but we didn't know what any of the cards did, other than like a couple. We also mentioned that there was going to be a new like Dragonite, not Dragonite, Charizard, yeah. That you said was going to be Dark type, but it's not Dark type.
It's not from this set. It's from the next like main set.
That's so dumb.
It's gonna. They have leaked a
Uh,
dark type Terra Charizard. Yes.
That's. I guess they're finally doing something with the Terra, which is fine. I feel like there's a lot of things that could do to the meta, but I'm gonna read off a couple of these cards, and you can let me know if you think they're good or not. Um, I don't think any of these are like. I think Blastoise is good, but I think the other one,
Belly Bolt EX.
Belly Bolt, dude, Belly Bolt
Yeah,
EX.
that's a
We talked about Belly Bolt EX episode 2, bud.
Wait, the Onyx is kind of cool. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
So we got Venusaur EX, right? Once during your turn, if this is near active, you may heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. It's kind of bad. 150, your opponent's active is now poisoned and confused. That one's kind of mediocre. Venusaur.
The only good thing about it is it's 340 HP.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's like he's so thick.
yeah, he's a big dude. Yeah, but he's also weak to one single touch of the Radiant Charizard. So
Yeah, unfortunately, he can't
Yeah.
survive that hit.
yeah, no amount of potions can heal that guy. We got a Charizard EX, which I don't know why Jake Gearhart was tweaking about this card, but he was tweaking, saying this card is actually good. But it's got 330
It's not
HP,
that good.
60 damage. If this Pokemon has any damage counters on it, does 100 more. And then the second attack is 330, discard 3 energies from this Pokemon.
How do you power it up?
That's what I was
I mean,
trying to say.
its first attack's 1 energy. Cool.
The sword attack has 1 energy, so it's like actually like pretty efficient. But it's a stage 2 that takes 4 energy.
So Jake was
Yeah.
I
saying.
don't know.
So basically, like, I saw the tweet and it was like Charizard EX with the Charizard from Pokemon Go.
Oh yeah, the Pokemon
that,
Go one.
That
Oh,
doubles
yeah.
the amount of fire.
So inconsistent, bro. There's no shot you're setting that up every game.
Yeah, but
You need like 10 stage 2s on the field.
yeah, but Blastoise got potential. He's a big dude.
Yeah, Blastoise is good.
So it's got the ability Solid Shell. This Pokemon reduces 30 from attacks, so he's effectively got 330 HP, right?
360, yeah.
360, yeah, 360. And then you could run, from what I saw, like Radiant Gardevoir and Lake Acuity, and do your effect.
With like almost 400.
Yeah, dude's like it's at exactly 400. Because it'll be 20 from each. But the problem is it's the same problem with this as we had with like Lost Gudra when it first came out, when it was running Lake Acuity when it first came out, was a simple path to the peak removes both Gardevoir and Lake Acuity.
Yeah.
So it's like, and also in this situation, it removes the ability Lake Acuity and Guardy. So it's like, yeah, dude, your guy goes back down to 330. So, but his attack is pretty good too. Especially with like Bax Caliber and format, but that's still, you have to set up like a bunch of stage 2s. We also got Snatch Arm, which is look at your opponent's hand, choose a Pokemon you find there, put it at the bottom of your opponent's deck. And
That's like kind of cool. Like you can
Yeah.
go like path strip away their curly and then just left with a dead hand. I don't know. Like it's probably not that good, but it's actually kind of cool.
it's like a reprint. I don't remember.
Hand
so-
scope.
Yeah, of Hand Scope, but added the effect of adding it to the bottom of the deck. We got Leftovers. If Leftovers, I feel like could be used in a couple of decks. Like I feel like Gudra could utilize this card.
Yes, we haven't had
Mhm.
we haven't had leftovers in like a decade plus. I think
we
I
ever
remember
had
it used to be around like way back. I think there was a leftovers card, but
So-
we haven't had it in forever. So
But
it's kind of cool.
The problem with the current Leftovers is I feel like the old Leftovers was like healing 20 was kind of valuable because your dudes didn't have very much HP, right? So like healing 20 was like healing a third of your Pokemon's health. And then, but now I feel like it's not as relevant to heal 20. Like I feel like there are certain situations like if Weezing was still in format that like Leftovers would be useful. But
Yeah, it'd be broken for
yeah, it's just like poison doesn't do anything. But I don't know how good it would be. I feel like it's decent. It'll find its way into something. But I think Erica's is an incredible card. And I feel like it's got a really good effect to it. It's basically your opponent reveals their hand. You choose a basic Pokemon you find there, and then you switch it to the active spot.
Yeah, this card's really, really good. This is gonna be played in a lot of decks. It's good in
Sandro
control.
break it. Control break it.
It's
Yeah,
very,
yeah. I think it's gonna be a one of in most decks.
it's very good in control, like it because it's like you can trap something in active from like you can like force a lure module to like see what they're gonna draw off the lure module, right? And then you can force the Pokemon down and into the active, and then trap it with Mawile. So I think
Yeah,
I think that's pretty decent.
it's going to cause players to play differently, which is important. It's going to make people bench stuff just to bench stuff to prevent that from happening. It might make collapse stadium more because like what you can do is like you can collapse them, then vacuum it away, and then use that card, to force like something down when you're like they try and like counter you, which like the best way to counter is just filling your bench. So you can do some pretty cool things, to actually make the Erica actually good. So that's gonna be cool to see for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, John was talking about this Onyx card, and I just read it, and it's
Oh yeah.
the stupidest card.
Oh, I've heard
ever.
about this. This card's a meme.
Yeah,
dude.
this
Yeah,
card's
It
awesome.
does 80 damage. Discard the top 5 cards of your deck. This attack does 80 damage for each Pokemon with a retreat cost of exactly 4.
Didn't they have that card? One, it was the Steelix with
I
thumping.
think it was
something.
Steelix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
So-
Steelix with like thumping slam or something.
Yeah. So I scroll down on Poke Beach, and the first comment I see is 4 Onyx, 52 non-basic Pokemon with a retreat cost of 4, right? With a retreat cost of 4, 4 double turbo energies, and then 380 damage per turn is all I'm seeing. This deck has no flaws whatsoever. And then the Raichu seems okay. Its ability is grounding. When one of your Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack, you may move one. Never mind, that card's bad. The Kabutops is pretty cool. I don't know if you've seen the Kabutops.
I think I've seen a picture of it. I don't think I know exactly what it does.
It says all of your Pokemon do 4 times weakness to your opponent's active Pokemon.
Oh yes, this card.
Mhm.
It's cool. I don't know exactly if it's gonna be worth playing because I feel like if you already have weakness, you should already be beating them. So I don't actually know how relevant that 4 times is gonna be.
Kecleon is about to go up in value,
Okay.
dude.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Wasn't that card rotated?
No, Evolving Skies.
I've always got
Oh, it's Roaring Sky.
Yeah.
Kecleon with
Always
just like a shit ton of energies, dude.
Oh my god.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. That's pretty cool, except for that does exactly what Snorlax does. But Omastar does exactly what Snorlax does.
Oh yeah, it's just block. Yeah.
So, Starmie do anything cool?
Starmie's kind of cool.
Starmie says, once during your turn, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. If you placed any damage counters in this way, discard this Pokemon and all cards attached to it.
That's
Inglu
wild.
Stonks. Yeah.
Dude,
Tinglu Stonks?
yeah, invest in it now. Grab your Koraidons, boys. But yeah, I think 151 is a very okay set. I think it's very bad. The more I look into it, the more I feel like it's just one of those filler sets that have no value at all. But
Wait, is this set going to be added on to Paldea Evolved? Is this part
It's
of
a
it?
mini. It's a mini
It's
set.
a mini set.
Oh, so this will So this will be interesting if this set comes out. Like if this is going to be the world set,
Yeah.
or if this is going to be
yeah.
like a Pokemon Go set.
like
You know, we
Pokemon
know we have
Go,
Pokemon.
It
yeah.
is. It is like Pokemon Go.
So the question is, do we get another set before Worlds
Yes.
or not?
Yeah, we get 151. More
Oh,
than
thank
like
God.
more
like,
than
did we get one after Paldea before Worlds? No.
I think we do. We should. We always
Because
get
we didn't
set.
get a set
If
before
we're
this
on-
World. It's
if we're-
kind of shitty.
We did get a set before this past Worlds. It was Pokemon Go.
Yeah, but it wasn't legal.
Pokemon
Not like a
Go-
main set.
Pokemon Go didn't
Got
actually
main
completely
set.
change the meta though. Like I'm just talking about like a big set, because
Oh,
like
Lost
back
Swords.
we would always get a big set
we-
right before.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
We have
so
we have
before
before.
COVID, our schedule was different, right? So before COVID, we were rotations happened at the start of at
It was
like right before
September.
Worlds. September, yeah. So
It was right after Worlds.
yeah, so now we're on a different cycle, and like last Worlds, every Worlds pretty much right before this past one, we had a new set, like a big set drop right before. That's why like Guardy won that
2017.
2017.
Yeah.
And so it was like, but now we're on the cycle where we get a mini set right before Worlds, so it doesn't shake too much up. So whatever mini set we'll get will happen right before Worlds, but we won't be getting like a huge set, no. But
Okay.
That's interesting.
Looking through this list though, there's a shit ton of EXs in this set. Like an absolute shit ton of them for no reason. There is Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur. What does Ekans evolve into? Arbok?
Arbok.
Yeah.
Arbok.
Arbok has an EX. Wigglytuff has an EX. Ninetales has an EX. Alakazam. Golem has an EX. Electrode has an EX. Kangaskhan has an EX. For some reason, Jinx has an EX, and it's a water type?
Apparently, yeah.
Why is Jinx a water type?
It's ice
That's
type.
weird.
Is Jinx ice type?
Yeah. Yeah, it's ice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's ice psychic.
Psychic.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, people just think it's psychic.
I didn't know it was ice.
Yeah.
Well, and then we have Zapdos and Mew, and we already know what Mew does. It's fucking terrible.
We know what like most of them do.
We know
what all of them do.
We don't know what all of
them.
them.
Alakazam.
We don't know what Golem, Wigglytuff.
They never make Golem a good card. You're not gonna worry about it.
I mean, Electrode will blow itself up.
Dude, they always.
Dude, Electrodes.
You always know Golem's is a trash tier card because I don't think they've ever made a good one, which is honestly kind of sad because I think that Golem's super cool. Yeah. But they never give him good cards.
Does Electrode have an ability?
It's hard to see because it's behind this fucking annoying ass Quaxley that you can't see any of the other cards for. So we don't see 4 of the cards because of Quaxley. But yeah, I mean, I think 151 will be not. I think it'll be exactly like Go. Like we might get 1 or 2 good cards that are good in Lost Box, and like that's it. Because that's just kind of how these mini sets are going at this point. Like
how many cards are in the mini set?
151.
51.
Wow, that's not even a mini set anymore. But it's mostly just like reprints.
It's all the Kanto Pokemon.
Not a single reprint. There's not a single reprint. It's just there's only 151 cards in the set, and it's 1 of each Pokemon from the first generation.
Okay.
So
Golem was first generation?
Yeah.
Golem evolves from Geodude, bud.
Yeah.
No, but I thought they put Golem. I thought it was just Graveler for first generation. I didn't know Golem. I thought Golem was added in Johto. Okay.
We got a Alolan Golem though.
Yeah, we got a Alolan Golem. That card's never been good too.
Electromagnetic Rock Wrecker, yeah.
Dude,
that thing was fun if you set it up.
The longest attack I've ever seen in my life. I cannot believe that we're getting a Jinx EX. This is also the first time that Jinx has ever had like a card that was 2 prizes, because I don't think there was an original.
No, there was never an EX, GX, V, Jinx. No.
Yeah, there was never like even like back in the day there was not even an EX.
It's nothing.
Jinx just sucks, dude. Like, why does Jinx get an EX now?
Yeah.
Pokemon got sued because of Jinx.
Who sued them? Nicki Minaj?
No. They got. If I'm not mistaken, don't correct. I mean, do not correct me if I'm wrong. No, but correct me if I am incorrect. But I'm pretty sure that it got like in trouble for blackface because
Jinx's original color was black.
Yes, Jinx's original color was black.
And it was like, and
because now it's purple or like yellow.
It's purple,
right?
Yeah,
it's purple, like purple, like a very, very bright purple. As far
just so you know,
and
they made that shit an Oompa Loompa, bro.
Dude, and so what's really funny is like I remember reading something about this, and they were like, Jinx was always purple, and they were like, we just couldn't put purple on the original Game Boy. And they were like, because the original Game Boy,
that's such cat, bro.
It's like the original Game Boy is black and white, and I was like, oh my god, but. Like, how are there cards with Jinx printing where it's just like completely like black. If that's the case.
Oh, there is. Yeah, there's a Neo Destiny.
Well, the card
with
was
it.
originally black. I just thought it looks too much like a human to some people, so I think that's
Yeah.
why they got upset.
Yeah, because Smoochum was also, if I'm not mistaken, Smoochum was also originally like.
I don't think they have a black
Smoochum was like Gen
Pokemon
2.
card. Like I think this is all just like lighter shades of brown.
Yeah, Smoochum was just pink.
Smoochum was always like later. So yeah.
Well, actually, Gengar was technically black at the beginning because they actually did. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Gengar was not purple, right?
I mean, nothing was purple in Gen 1 because there was no
Yeah,
colors.
it was just.
I mean,
Yeah, but I still thought like
because the
when they added color.
Game Boy Color, right, had like a little bit of color.
I thought it was
right?
black in Pokemon Yellow. Yeah.
I thought it was black and yellow too. I thought it was also black and crystal.
I didn't play the game, so I don't know, but I've seen
Let me take a look. Original Gengar.
What we're on now.
Yes, it's what we're doing. Original Gengar.
Okay.
It's
Electrode.
So there are, I think it was always purple. I mean, I think that like in the Game Boy it wasn't purple because there was no color.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. But also this is sick because this is the first Alakazam card we've had. Or not Alakazam, Kadabra card.
Kadabra, yeah.
Oh yeah, guys. There's another issue with that too.
Yeah, with the whole.
Right? Didn't like someone sue them as well for it because it was like some like
spoon
magician or something like that. That was funny.
There was a magician with the name Kadabra, and
oh my god,
they said that
bent spoons.
They took his likeness and his name, and I was like, bro, if you look like Kadabra, I would visit a doctor. I would visit a doctor immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much wraps up anything that we've got to talk about right now. Anything current. If there's anybody you want to shout out, Gabe, if there's anything or anybody you want to talk about, closing thoughts, anything like that, John, you get your turn in a second, so you can shout out Liquid Death.
I don't need.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess the most important thing is I do offer coaching. Link will be in the description if you guys want to improve. Hit that. John used to be a student of mine, and he's been doing really
before
well
NAIC.
Yeah.
Very well. John's been doing very well.
So yeah, and then shout out to Dead Draw Gaming, and if you want to read my articles, go to Cut or Tap. Thanks for having me here. I'll be at Portland, so if you see me, make sure to go say hi. It'll be super nice to meet you, and yeah, like thanks for having me on. Hope to be on again in the future.
No, absolutely. John, any closing thoughts?
I got nothing. I was just drinking my water.
Oh shit! I almost forgot the important section of the podcast.
Yeah, this is your thing, bro.
I can't believe
you live there, not me.
Dude, we always do this thing where we talk about a card.
Oh yeah.
A card that we want, that we feel like would be really good for the meta if it came back, right?
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah,
you do good for the meta. I do chaotic evil.
Yeah, John, the last like 3 times was like, he was like, I want Garbotoxin. He's like, I want Reset Stamp. He's like,
I said Max Elixir and Broken Time Space. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talk about a card that you feel like if it came back would benefit the meta in a good way. And John just likes to throw things that ruin the entire format.
I do. Yeah.
I would like personally Wobbuffet to come back. There was a Wobbuffet with the ability Buy to Barricade that made it so that I think you could still use abilities, right? But they couldn't, or what?
No, both
it was all abilities.
All abilities other than Psychic type Pokemon.
So the biggest problem with Klefki is that Klefki is not an attacker, so it can't do anything. However, Wobbuffet had a pretty cool attack. I believe it was 20 plus 10 for every damage counter on the opponent's active Pokemon. We saw cards like Crobat and Goldbat with like sneaky bites, like that was used to damage things, and then Wobbuffet would take KOs. So I personally would like to see that card come back over Klefki because that's actually a check to Lost Box, which I don't think Lost Box has a whole lot of checks right now, currently in the format. So that'd be a card I like to see because that card would actually just beat, most Lost Box variants. So that would be something I would actually kind of think would be nice. But yeah.
John?
Let loose because I play Guardy and I don't want to lose the Lost Box.
Dude, we already got Judge back, and you want a Judge as a Pokemon?
I can Fog
Oh
Crystal
my
for it. Yeah, I
lord.
can Fog Crystal for it.
Fog Crystal for shuffle and draw 4. Oh my god.
I feel like a card that could be really good is something similar to like either what Sudowoodo did, or
This was the rally back one, you mean?
no,
Roadblock.
the Roadblock, yeah,
Yeah.
or
Oh,
or,
Roadblock.
Yeah.
Sure.
Parallel City. I feel like the problem with like I don't think there's like a huge problem with it, but the problem is with collapsed. Collapse can just easily be just bumped out of the way. It's always just stadiums bumping stadiums. But the problem, the big thing with Sudowoodo was you had to accurately place your Pokemon down, and you had to be more strategic about it because you didn't have a way. If you didn't kill the Sudowoodo, you only had the obligated 4 bench spots, and it made a lot better. It was played in a lot of decks actually. This was back in like Mega Ray times too, so that just kind of shit on Mega Ray. Um, but I think having some sort of control over your side of the opponent's board, like over your opponent's board, is always nice. And so Sudowoodo kind of helps with like gatekeeping them from reaching certain aspects, especially with stuff like, I don't know, like maybe Squawkabilly. Like if you go first, you can put Sudowoodo down and force them to put down Squawkabilly for their draw, and then they can't get rid of it. You know what I mean? So like it's not as smart to play those draw Pokemon as it would be if you had that 5th bench slot. You know, so I feel like that could be a really good card for the format. But also, ancient traits are cool, and I think ancient traits should come back. I like ancient trait cards.
Oh, Terra type. They all have bench barrier.
Dude, that is stupid. Terra types are the stupidest thing Pokemon has ever done, and they threw away an incredible concept by just.
Wow, dude. Some people like that. I mean, like, I don't really care because I don't play VGC, but like,
No. Like in the
No,
TCG,
in
the
the
Terras
TCG.
all have bench
oh, in the
barrier.
TCG.
Yeah.
They threw away the stupidest the best concept
Oh, yeah, they
for
didn't-
Pokemon we've had.
They all have bench barrier and they're all the same type. Yeah.
Bro, how did you not know that, Gabe?
I haven't been taped. Honestly,
Bro,
I've been so
there's
focused on
2 of them out.
which one?
Arcanine and Gyarados. Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that. Well, see, I
Bro, what the
learned
fuck?
something new. Okay, I'll be doing an Arcanine video tonight.
Here's the top 10 best ways to play Arcanine EX. I just learned about this card 15 minutes ago. But yeah, thank you guys so much for popping by. It's been a really good episode, actually. If you guys are still here, we are sponsored by Game Haven, so you can check their links down below to get any cards or anything along those lines. And all of Gabe's links will also be down in the bio, and John's will not, because I do not like John.
I'm gonna link the Gabe Smart dice in the bio.
Oh yeah. Do that.
Yeah. Game Smart dice down in the bio too. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, leave us with a rating on Spotify or a like or whatever the hell, dislike. I don't give a shit. This video is gonna get dislikes, so go ahead and leave them already in the YouTube. So thank you guys for popping by. I'll see you guys next week.
Peace.